Welcome to TriMet 101. Today we're going to be talking about old light rail vehicles. It's time to create a museum, but what would be in it? Old light rail vehicles. The era I'm looking for is when high-floor trains were pretty much the only type of light rail vehicle being produced. Imagine showing up to a rural plot of land and getting there by bus or maybe by car, and there are a couple of buildings on this plot of land that are museum related. I'm going to get into those in more detail. Firstly, the mechanic shop. This is where you would find trains in various states of disassembly. You could look at wheel trucks, how they're assembled and how they look, or you could go inside operator cabs and push buttons and mess with switches and things, or a whole host of mechanic-related things. Certain wires and things would have to be disconnected before this would become a public event. That way the trains aren't accidentally driven off somewhere or something crazy happens or whatever. So now let's go to the next building, which house the vintage streetcars and trolleys. This particular building would house various streetcars or trams worldwide, produced anywhere from the early 1900s to as late as the 70s. And my favorite ever model of streetcars ever produced, the PCC streetcars, would also be featured in this building. You might also find some old Soviet-era trams, or German trams, Dutch trams, anything that looks retro. And now onto the vintage light rail vehicles, abbreviated as LRVs. This particular building would house, well, North America's journey with light rail over the past few decades. So, old LRVs would pretty much fill this building. I'd like to get the Max Type 1s, or at least replicas of them, as we are pretty much scrapping everything. The Denver RTD, the San Diego light rail vehicles, the old Boston light rail vehicles, the Salt Lake City UTA, and Calgary. This is the general era I'm looking for. Just old. And that would be the main events, really, of this particular building, is to just show off the beginnings of our light rail journey of where we started. You could walk into these trains, see how they look, see how they're laid out, and there would be signs inside and outside telling you where these trains were used and how old they are and some other information about them. That would also be true for my vintage streetcars and trolley buildings that I previously mentioned. The last building I'll talk about is the station building and rides. So this is where you could go and you could buy a ticket, although really it would just be sort of a souvenir for you. But you could buy a ticket to go and ride an old light rail vehicle. And you would board at the station, and then you would just ride it in a sort of circle. It wouldn't be a perfect circle, but it would be just a little track. It would be in sort of a mock village. There would be fake buildings along the route that sort of add to the experience, and there would be a tunnel when you get to the back. So, yeah, you'd get the full experience. Now, I'd like to use lots of different types of light rail vehicles to be able to take a ride through this particular village, but what I'd really like to see are the Max, the RTD, San Diego trolley, as well as, hopefully, PCC streetcars, as that would be really nice to be able to take a ride on one of those. I guess this whole video is pretty much just food for thought, but I will tell you, if it existed, I would absolutely visit. People really like old trains. And there's a lot of us out there that do, in fact, like old trains and flock to them, which is partially the reason why San Francisco's streetcars are so successful, because, well, PCC streetcars are awesome. So I believe that my particular museum idea would do pretty well. Now, it of course also depends on location and things like that, and good luck finding a cheap rural plot of land that's also hopefully close to some sort of transit line, but that's something that you'd have to figure out later. But anyways, I thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.